Hi Elvis fans. I love the interviews that give us an insight into the life of Elvis and Priscilla, almost like a fly on the wall type thing. And Barbara Walters, not being my favourite interviewer, gives us a little insight via her questions to Priscilla on how life was between Elvis and Priscilla in the early years. Here goes.
And then every night to go to sleep, he'd take some pills. He'd have to.
So her reply to that question, he'd have to. Well, why did he have to? And what was Elvis's need for the pills? We know that the pill taking started back in the army years on manoeuvres to keep him awake at night. But why did he go on to have to use these pills? Let's listen a little bit longer.
He had a fear of insomnia, first of all. And when he woke up, he had a horrible fear he could never get back to sleep again. And it was real.
Well, Priscilla's reply to this question is very interesting because it gives us some kind of understanding. Elvis had very bad insomnia. He had a fear of never being able to get back to sleep again. Can anyone even imagine how that feels? Are there anyone out there that has this problem? Please comment, because that must have been so scary for him. And the easy fix for Elvis was to take a pill, and that would send him off to sleep and really temporarily fix his problem. And in those days, the 50s and the 60s, you didn't really know how addictive these pills were and their side effects and their long-term effect. So a very naive, innocent Elvis getting into taking tablets that he just thought were good for him and would help him.
So every night he took the pills and he gave them to you too?
Yes.
And this is the part of the interview that I am not comfortable with. I don't really like Barbara Walters' tone in this part of the interview because she's clearly just trying to make Elvis look bad, like he was bad intentioned, and trying to, I think, twist Priscilla's replies. Let's carry on listening.
And they became normal?
Mm-hmm.
And they became normal, Barbara says. But the truth is they were taking pills to wake up and keep them alert and awake, and pills to go off to sleep. So I think at this point of Elvis's pill taking, things hadn't got out of hand and got very difficult as his later years. So I actually think the pill taking at this point was very simple, and there was no harm intended by Elvis. He probably felt like he was helping Priscilla. So I don't look at Elvis in a bad light on this particular point, but I do think Elvis was out of his depth and didn't know what he was doing.
So this is this bizarre life of being able to have or buy anything you want?
Again with Barbara, she calls Elvis's life bizarre because he was wealthy to the point where he could buy whatever he wanted. I don't call that bizarre. Yes, he was super successful, could buy anything he wanted, but was he bizarre? Was his life bizarre? No. Was her life bizarre? No. But yes, they were in a life where anything was at hand, anything was affordable, and it was exciting, and it was a massive adventure.
Loneliness?
It's clear now from many interviews that Priscilla did feel very lonely, was left at home to look after the home without Elvis very often, because Elvis would be off doing his performances and his films and many, many other things, I expect. And yes, she got lonely. And this obviously led to many problems in the future, being left at home.
Days of being alone with him in darkened rooms, pills, and you loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Elvis would hide away in his bedroom with Priscilla. he did like the rooms darkened for days, just to get away from that celebrity life and the mass attention that was on him and her, and eventually on Lisa as well.
Was he good to you?
Very.
And very short questions. Was he good to you? Well, I believe Elvis was very good to Priscilla, and that he really did care about her. He wanted to do the right thing for Priscilla, and that included her education and keeping her parents happy, and he wanted her to be happy. But the lifestyle that Elvis lived, especially with his filmmaking and traveling for his performances, and yes, unfortunately, he would be unfaithful and had his own secret world away from Priscilla. He wanted to treat Priscilla well, but it could never happen. He was Elvis Presley, a human being.
Was he also bad to you?
And unfortunately, yes, there were times Elvis was bad to Priscilla, and he had a very bad temper, and he was very stubborn. And it wasn't right, all of the things that he did with Priscilla sometimes were very unfair, and from her point of view, sometimes even cruel. So we all know from many interviews that this led to Elvis and Priscilla eventually divorcing. And I've always believed that Elvis regretted many of the things that he did behind Priscilla's back, and how he treated her, and the way she was left home away from him for long periods of time. So it can be very sad, the answer to this simple question: was he bad to you?
When you say bad to me, it wasn't bad to me in a way that, intentional bad.
And I think Priscilla is actually very fair in how she replies to this question. He was super successful, amazingly talented. The whole world's eyes were on Elvis Presley. All the women adored Elvis and were throwing themselves at him. He had a lot of temptation coming his way. And can I ask you, as an Elvis fan, if you were in this same position, could you have been faithful? Would you have stayed home with your wife or fiancé? Would you have made the mistakes that Elvis made and the decisions he made that were obviously unfair? Please comment.
Elvis went through an awful lot, and I think the communication that we had was very difficult and different.
And Priscilla, in her own way, is still defending Elvis, even though we now know in later interviews that she actually was treated very unfairly. As a husband, he should not have done the things that he did. Now, I truly am a fan of Elvis, and I understand the pressures he was under, but you get married, you stay faithful, and you're home for your family. We all know that. Now, I'm not a massive fan of Priscilla, even though I do find her situation was impossible to deal with as a wife of the most famous man on the planet. Please comment if you have views. Either way, I respect all people's views. Thanks for watching. All the best to you.